Hello, INTPs. The reason I'm making this video is that I've been getting deeper into Myers-Briggs theory, and I want to share what I've learned with other INTPs. When I first learned I was an INTP, I was in high school and considered each letter individually without going deep. I naively assumed that changing one letter would still make the other person very similar. Recently, I learned that each Myers-Briggs type has 4 cognitive functions, but in addition to this, each one has an introverted and extroverted version of that function. For an INTP, the strongest to weakest functions are introverted thinking, followed by extroverted intuition, then introverted sensing, and an extraverted feeling. I thought this was strange at first, because I thought all of mine would be introverted since I'm an introvert. You can compare this to an INTJ who has the similar things: intuition, thinking, feeling, and sensing, but all the introvertedness and extrovertedness are actually flipped, and that has a lot of consequences in how we behave. So one letter matters. So INTPs are dominated by introverted thinking. So introverted thinking lets you see very small details, and you can try to combine them to form abstract concepts and models. This can take a really long time since we need a lot of information to really understand something, and generalizing something is naturally a hard problem. So we have this incredibly powerful logic machine and a huge desire to get results from it. But at the same time, we have extrovert intuition, which lets us see in the world so many options and alternatives and possibilities. This is why INTPs get that feeling that they have so many ideas, but also have a hard time explaining them to other people. Extrovert intuition gives us so many ideas. We can naturally use this intuition to make decisions and judgments, but our ideas don't naturally lend themselves to being converted to spoken language. Part of this reason is a natural input-output problem. The input of intuitive ideas can feel enormous or infinite. So let me ask you, how long does it take to convert infinity into words? So honestly, I think this is something that needs to be solved in many INTPs to live a more satisfactory life. Most INTPs will start talking and then feel like no one understands them. Our ideas are sometimes too radical for others, or we might go into too much detail and others will attack the ideas or just be confused while we feel like it's so obvious and that the person is so close-minded. So what's the solution to this? There's a few aspects. First, you need to seriously work on your communication skills. So INTPs will normally think they're so intelligent and that humans are so stupid for not understanding them. However, presentation matters, and INTPs are particularly prone to something called cycling. Cycling is what INTPs do when they go on tangents in conversation. I'll do a few tangents in this video. But cycling is, for example, if you're trying to explain a concept that goes from A to B to C, a normal person will use a straightforward approach. What INTPs do, though, is start by going from A to B, but as they explain, they feel like they left something out, and start going on a tangent to make themselves clear. Even if you actually got to B, as you're explaining C, you might feel like your explanation to B was inadequate by itself, or maybe it was inadequate to fully explain C. So you go to more tangents, and yeah. It's something we logically do, since we really want to be right about things, and we have it all in our head, and when we realize that something can be misconstrued, we feel the need to correct it, while the other person is mentally vomiting and hoping we get to the point. So what are some ways to avoid cycling? Typically practicing something like teaching or storytelling helps. That's actually what I'm trying to do now. I'm trying to make more YouTube videos and notice that I want to go on so many tangents during the videos. But then I also realized it would take forever to go on all those tangents. And as an INTP, there's some lazy stigmatism associated with it. So sometimes I get to the point where I'm lazy. So I feel like I should just figure out how to do this more efficiently, so I'll have less work to do, but still be able to make an okay video. Learn to use your strengths, guys. um, when you're making a YouTube video, you're not actually talking to another human being, so you can't just blame them for being dumb. Like, you can sense if you're just going all these tangents and you're not getting your point across properly. You'll become way more aware of how to box your message into something short enough. Um, and in this case, the nice thing about making a video for INTPs though is that I can kind of cheat, since all of us are intuitive and we experience similar things. So I don't have to fully explain all these concepts for you to understand what I'm talking about. In addition to practicing your communication skills, another way to be better understood is to really find the right people, um, especially other intuitive types who are one letter different from us. So INFP, INTJ, and ENTP. Um, those are more likely to understand what you're talking about, since they have the intuition aspect, and they're only one letter apart. I have a link in the video description to list what types are easier to talk to. Um, at first, the list, like, you'll just look through it and be like, I'm not gonna memorize all these letters, but the list is pretty logical. The two most valuable traits for someone who wants to get along with an INTP are to have the intuition traits and to have more letters that are similar to us. Um, I recently got into Myers-Briggs more than I did before because I actually met an INFP who I really connected with, and I was racking my brains on why. Being INFP, she was naturally welcoming and a good communicator. But when we actually had a chance to talk, the conversation was really amazing. We seem to have a lot of similar ideas, mindsets, and life experiences, even though we've technically lived like quite different lives in general. Later, I realized it was because INFPs are good communicators, and we both have the N quality, so we were able to communicate intuitively and understand the other person's ideas. No one had to fully explain anything to have a good conversation. I also became obsessed with analyzing other personality types, since INFPs, like, they only have one letter different from us, but it seems like they have way healthier relationships. INTPs, on the other hand, have a strong risk of falling into depression or drugs or alcohol despite all our potential. Instead of just accepting this label or this as facts or whatever, I wanted to really understand what I could do about it. So I would say depressed INTPs fall into their thinking and sensing cycle. So thinking was the most dominant function, and sensing was the third one. Um, in particular, we have introverted sensing, and introverted sensing has been attributed to learning from past experiences. But that can be dangerous if you don't add any new experiences to your collection or your database. Think of it as a robot who always does the same actions. Someone who's on the thinking and sensing cycle is like a hard-coded computer program. You're always using the same source of information, so that's your sensing, and using your thinking to come up with the same set of instructions. So basically, you never change. So the INTP's saving grace is their extrovert intuition, seeing infinite possibilities and using that to learn more and more about the world lets them improve from their old ways. So INTPs need to continuously absorb more and more knowledge and do new things. Um, and their extrovert intuition is great to help with that. So basically, it's time to put your millions of dollar experiments into use. Like, doing these things can sound intimidating sometimes, but I know with your extrovert intuition, you already have a ton of ideas how to do it. You just gotta put it into action. So anyway, going back to finding the right people, this really isn't a straightforward, easy thing to do, but here are some things that help. Most of these will actually be working yourself. So one thing is practice positive affirmations. I bet most of you didn't expect this to be the first one. INTPs are known to be pretty calm, but they can also be quite negative in their ideas and insights. I felt this conflict. It's like in your logic, you've read enough like books or whatnot or YouTube videos to know that positivity is a good thing. But you also know that with your logic, you can also put yourself in a negative logic hole. So it's really hard to get out of that cycle. So positive affirmations are a way to mentally hypnotize yourself. And as a result, they drown out a lot of the negative self talk. Um, I would recommend choosing a positive affirmation that empowers you. So my favorite comes from the book Think and Grow Rich, and it's every day, in every way, I will be better and better. So I repeat this to myself quite often, and when I do it, I notice I stand up straighter and I recover faster from bouts of like loneliness or nostalgia or frustration when I hypnotize myself like this. Another way to find these people in your lives is practice your communication, which I mentioned before. Um, Sometimes some people recommend simply talking to others, which helps. Sometimes I really like the teaching method since it forces you to finally verbalize a lot of those ideas that you have. That I know that a lot of INTPs don't really try hard enough to do so. It also helps you understand the things better that are in your mind. It'll be easier to talk to others. Sometimes when I talk to others now, I actually teach as a teaching experience, and in that side, like teaching, once you get to teach, like once your goal is to teach, you kind of have to go all the way in terms of like communicating. You have to really get your point out, and therefore, I think it's a really great exercise. Side note to this, um, from books in history, I feel like those led by principles and passion are typically considered more trustworthy, congruent, and respected, and these things tend to give you more what people call charisma. People like Bill Gates, who's a great entrepreneur, his passion was to make computing available to everyone. Also, people with just high moral principles. When you ask them why they do something, they say it's their moral. They call a certain principle. As INTP, I feel like I'm not naturally programmed that way. When I make a decision, it's more like I consult thousands of lists of rules, and I see if a decision like works with those rules. So when I do something, it's more of an experiment than usually like a burning desire to help others. Like I do sometimes use my intuition and my sensing and my feeling, um, but I don't always feel like it's a fire in me or a passion in me. We also have like commitment problems. So like I don't know if like I feel like I have to mentally decide to be passionate about something, and we can see all these possibilities of our extrovert intuition, and we can take like a lot of sides or all the sides of a certain topic. So I'm not sure if I could suddenly get a fire to champion something. So my way of starting to get to that is my fire to start teaching. I know teaching is really good. It will help me with my relationships in my life. And the fire is really to help give value to others. And also another thing is, as INTPs, we have so many great ideas, but since we don't work on communicating them, a lot of it ends up being wasted. So it's really a big shame, and it goes along with our not feeling like we're understood. So communicating our ideas will make us feel like we're more understood, and we'll actually be using our potential instead of going through like bad cycles for INTPs. Another tangent, the desire to teach also came from confusing my INFP friend who I connected with recently. Um, at those moments, I realized the ideas that I was trying to talk about were way too underdeveloped. I didn't take the effort to really explain them, and it's different when like you talk to someone who you know is pretty close-minded and they don't understand you. But when you're talking to someone who's you've really connected with, and you know that for most things that you say they'll understand, when they don't get it, it's not like a I want to know more about what you're saying. I kind of get it, but I want you to explain more. This is like, dude, you explain that really badly, and I was like, I can't keep doing this. I really want to maintain this friendship. So tip number three for getting these great relationships: get rid of a lot of the negative relationships in your life. There's a principle behind this. Like the five people you associate most with affect who you are. So basically, you need to find more people in your life who are more like-minded and can help understand you and inspire you. Um, you have to really try to cut out or maybe not cut some of these people out of your lives, but spend less time with them. People who don't want to grow and are not as intuitive, like you can't really talk to them about things. You could have people with different personality types, so maybe challenge your ideas, and help you grow. But still, you really want these people to like grow and inspire you and make it so you can be vulnerable and speak your ideas. But also call you out when you've done a really bad job, because that helps too. Last one was if you do get into these amazing groups, you have to develop a growth mindset yourself. Um, all other tips help with this, but really, you need to grow yourself in order to attract and keep these amazing people in your life. So the last thing I want to talk about is I haven't really talked about the INTP's last cognitive function. I covered the other three: introverted thinking, extroverted intuition, and introverted sensing. I didn't cover the last one, which is extroverted feeling. This is the one that lets us understand the social connections and emotions of the people around us. It's our weakest function, which partly explains why we don't seem as emotional around people. But it's insanely helpful if you want to have good relationships. I feel like I didn't develop this as much until I read How to Win Friends and Influence People in college. That one, it really helped just at least have some rules in my head on how to react around certain people. And using my extrovert feeling, I was able to sense how people were reacting to me. And so using those rules and my extrovert feeling, I was able to get along with people easier. As a bonus, INFPs, for one letter from us, are actually dominant. Like their dominant function is introvert feeling, while ours is introvert thinking. So they have a good sense of how they feel because it's introvert thinking, introvert feeling. And in particular, they're characterized by having a strong sense of principles and morals. And this is why I mentioned principles and morals before being the source of like your message sometimes. When you sense someone has those principles and morals, it's easier to get along with them because you sense they're more trustworthy. While us, we can kind of come off as robots sometimes. But maybe we could be really warm robots if you work on extrovert feeling. So one letter really um, makes a difference in this case. And that's why I was so baffled by um, how different our results were. So I really hope that I managed to help someone with this video. And I want to thank all the other YouTubers who make INTP videos and have helped me learn more about this community of INTPs.